Hi, parents and guardians. My name is Titi Lola, and I am a childcare provider with Get Our Sitter. Get Our Sitter is a platform that connects parents and guardians with childcare professionals like me. We also provide educational content for children. In this video, we will be focusing on the science part of the curriculum, and this lesson is appropriate for 4-year-old, basically preschool. At the end of this lesson, it is expected that a child is able to see and list the differences between fresh and dry apples. Also, the child should be able to identify food that are made from apples, at least one. Moving on to materials that we will be using for this lesson, we will be using a board or a piece of paper, for documenting. We will be using pencils or markers. We will be reading a book, Apple Farmer Annie. We will be singing a sing-along about apples. The book and the sing-along are linked in the lesson plan. We will also be needing a cutter, a peeler, a knife for the apple. Now let's get into the lesson. I will be starting the lesson by showing the child a picture of an apple. Say, you know what this is? Can you tell me what you see? And if the child says an apple, and I will go ahead and say, yes, we are learning about apples today. And, just in case we have a real life apple at home, I can also show that to the child and, just say this is an apple and we're going to be learning about apples today. We're going to be learning about fresh apples and we're going to be learning about dry apples. Now, the next step is to go ahead and tell the child and say, look at this apple. What does it look like? Does this look round? What do you think the shape of an apple is? And the child might mention round, and that's one thing that we will write down. And then you can say, can you try to, use your finger and feel the back of this apple? Do you think it's hard or do you think it's soft? And then the child can go ahead and tell me what the texture is. And tell me, it feels really hard at the back of the apple. And then I can go ahead too and ask, so what color do you think this apple is? What color do you think it is? If the child is able to mention, I think this apple is red, that's another thing that we will go ahead and write down. And then another thing is, so look at this apple. Do you think it's bright or do you think it looks dull? Do you think it looks a little bit bright or dull? If the child says, I think it looks bright, then that's one thing we will write down. For a child that probably doesn't know much about what the apple looks like, it's a form of support is to, offer choices. So, for instance, I'm asking the child, so what shape do you think this apple is? I can say, do you think it's round or do you think, it's like a triangle? Do you think it looks like a square or what shape do you think it is? So that's another form of support that you can offer to your child. So that way they have choices to choose from when describing what the apple looks like. After the child has been able to mention these features that they are able to identify from a whole apple, we will go ahead and cut the apple. And then, tell the child, so what do you see? Do you think this apple looks juicy? Do you see the juice from this apple? And if the child says, yes, I can see the juice. Okay, you think it looks really fresh? And then the child can, take a bite from the apple and, ask, is it sweet? Is it sour? What does it taste like? And, if the child is able to tell me, I think it tastes sweet, all of those features we are going to write down on a paper or on a board. If you notice, I am offering a form of support to the child by giving choices. You necessarily don't have to do that if you aware that the child is able to do this on their own. So you really don't have to offer them choices like say, do you think this is round or do you think this looks like a triangle? You can just go ahead and ask them, so what do you think the shape of this apple is? Some children are able to, recognize it and be able to identify it, but some might need support, and then that's when offering choices comes in. So that way you're able to offer them support without really interfering with their learning. So what I did is I went ahead and wrote all this features that we identified down. So I wrote down that, the apple is round, it feels hard at the back, it looks really bright. When we cut it, it was juicy. When we tried to eat it, it was sweet. And then when we cut it, it looked white inside. We will then go ahead and sing along with the song.
I saw 5 apples looking at me. I shook that tree as hard as I could. Down came 1 apple, and it was good. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Way up high in the apple tree.
So after we listen to that song and we sing along with it, we will notice some features that even the song, pointed out. Like the first part of the song talking about crunch. So we can also put that down as a feature of what a fresh apple is. So you can say, oh, when you bite on this apple, does it taste crunchy? This sing along also does help the child improve on your math skills because it involves subtraction. From 5 apples, it goes into 4, it goes into 3, 2, and 1. We will then go ahead and read the book, Apple Farmer.
Is an apple farmer. She has a big orchard of apple trees. In the fall, she picks baskets and baskets of round, ripe apples. Uses some of the apples to make sweet apple cider. She uses others to make delicious, smooth applesauce. She loves baking muffins, cakes, and pies with her apples.
After we've read this book, we will go ahead and cut our apple. So if you're doing this with a child, you can make it more fun by using cutters to cut the apple. So you can use the cutters with the different shapes and sizes. So you can cut your apples into triangles, cut them into squares, into circles, and all of that shapes. I already cut my apples, and then after you've done that, you should go ahead and put the cut apples in a container, like a big bowl if you do, and then just place them somewhere safe where the child can always see. So after you've cut those apples, put them in a container where the child can see them. It doesn't have to be at the reach of the child, but for the child to be able to see these changes as they happen every day. And after a few days, you can go on and bring out the dry apple and show it to the child, and compare it with the fresh. And since this lesson is an ongoing lesson, you really cannot, know if an apple is dry on the same day that you put it out. But you can just go ahead and review with the child about the book that we read. So the review that I put in the lesson plan is to just ask the child and say, what do you think you can make apples with? According to the book that we read, there were a few things that Annie did with her apples. So you can, review that with a child. So, that way, that they truly did. The child might not be able to understand how these things are made from apples, but the child knows that these things are made from apples. So this is also a science objective that it's important for a child to know and understand that, apples are not just apples. There are a lot of things that you can make from apples, like applesauce, like my cut apples have been left to dry on their own for about 5 days. So we are going to go ahead and check them, see what they look like, place my dry apple right beside my fresh apple and see what the differences are. So we'll go ahead and show this to the child. So this is the apple that we left out for about 5 to 6 days, and this is the one that we just cut right now. So I will go ahead and ask the child, so what do you think looks different with the dry apple? And the child might say, oh, you can tell the child, go ahead and touch it. What does it feel like? You might say, oh, I think it feels dry. Oh, you think it's dry? Do you see any juice in it? Child might say, oh, no juice. It's completely dry. And I'll say, okay, put that down as dry. Dry beside juicy. Now, I'll go ahead and ask the child, so look at the color in here. Is it the same as this? What color is this? Did the apple change color? You remember when we cut it, it was like this. Now it looks like this now. What do you think? What do you think happened? You think it's because it's dry? So tell me, what color do you think that is? The child might go with brown, it's colored, or anything like that. So we can go with color. So I went ahead and completed these features. They were both round because we cut them round. And the fresh apple is hard, and then when we touch the dry one, it feels soft. The color of the fresh apple looks really bright, but the dry one looks dull. And all of that features is what we gonna talk about what is different from the fresh apple and the dry apple. Talking about these differences between the dry apples and the fresh apple with the child is a form of experiment that the child have observed and really explored in their own. Day to day they're able to see the apple and see how it changes. Another thing that you can do if you're home is always make sure that you check on your apple that is left to dry every day. So every day you can keep documenting whatever changes that you see on it. So let's say day one, the apple still remains like you look to when you first put it out. You can document that and write that down. Day 2, day 3. I only left my apples out for about 5 days, but you can leave this apple for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, just to see the changes that happen with the apple with time. So the child understands that a lot of things can happen to this apple over time. It's different from the apple they eat in the fridge and feels fresh, feels crunchy, and all of that. So we can also go ahead and review the differences again, and I can offer support to the child by telling them, okay, so differences mean what is different from this one, what do you think is here and not there. So that way the child understands it, and then we can review these differences together, fresh and dry apple, so that way the child understands the lesson. Thanks for watching. Parents and guardians, you may download the Get a Sitter app for more videos like this and to request for a childcare provider. The app is available on Apple and Android devices. Visit www.getasitternow.com for the desktop version. Bye!